Tell your story.
Change the conversation.
Organized by students. TEDx Youth at SHC.
Almost every time I needed to do anything that required me to dedicate more than 5 minutes and my focus, I would, given the slightest opportunity, spend that time, almost every time, searching for a distraction. That's not because whatever I needed to do was particularly complicated. It's quite the opposite. It's the simplest things. From a short chapter reading to recording a presentation on my laptop, my thought was, there's always a better time for this, and that time is not now. That's when I ended up reaching for my phone. My phone was there, just there in my pocket or in my bag or worse, sitting on top of my homework. And I know I'm not alone in this. Even my teacher, she has a smartwatch, not to check the time, just to find her phone. We are living in post-pandemic times, and many of us, myself included, are trying to cope with the habits we developed during COVID. During the pandemic, when everything went online, my phone became the only way to connect with others. Just talking to my grandparents, who lives 5 minutes away, required a phone. A global study from the National Library of Medicine, surveyed during the pandemic, showed that about 70% of internet users, especially students, relied on phones for personal connections. We all remember what technology, especially our phones, meant to us during COVID. Thankfully, COVID ended, and our lives began to return to pre-COVID practices. Well, almost. When I returned to in-person school, we were asked to put our phones away. Taking my phone away felt like cutting off a lifeline. My phone had my entire life on it: computer, calendar, contacts, phones, games, TikTok. You get the picture. A study on mobile phone addiction published in 2022 defines mobile phone addiction as the inability to regulate personal mobile phone use, which can lead to symptoms like substance abuse disorders such as compulsive use, withdrawals, cravings, loss of control, and mood dysregulation. When I first walked around after the pandemic restrictions were lifted, I was initially pulling out my phone. I struggled so much that I didn't even notice the sound of the ocean when I was walking by at the beach. Everything in the background was just cut out. My phone, which during COVID was the most important thing in my life, now presented itself as a liability. I wasn't able to be fully present to my studies. My friends, my family, my life. My challenging academic schedule required my full attention. Writing research papers, taking practice tests, and reading text-heavy documents required a substantial amount of focus. Though I did sometimes get into zones of total focus. This happens maybe 2 hours over an entire week. I remember feeling really productive during these intense but very small windows of time, but that meant the overwhelming majority of the time, the other 8 to 10 hours I spent on homework every week, I was just barely strolling by. Homework that I definitely could have done in maybe 30, 40 minutes took the entire night just because I picked up my phone. Don't get me wrong, technology is an indispensable tool that has a place in our society. Still, a phone can also be as detrimental as it is helpful. It's a world of distractions just in our hands, and I know I'm not alone. A post-pandemic study from the National Library of Medicine found that 61% of parents reported their children to be addicted to their devices. So here is how I tackle the problem. This is how I broke up with my phone. When I reached the point where I realized how much time I spent on my phone and how unproductive I was, I knew I had to make some changes. I started paying attention to how much time I spent on my phone. I would come home from practice around 6 p.m. and immediately reach for my phone, and I would doom scroll until 9 p.m., and then I would begin my assignments. To address this, I began to experiment with different things to reduce my distractions. First, I put my phone down, typically on the other side of the room. I needed to have to work to it. I didn't realize how much muscle memory would tempt me to pick up my phone without thinking. Next, to make sure I didn't pick up my phone, I turned my notifications off. This means there were significantly fewer moments of me doing something like writing an essay about the imagery of blood in Macbeth, then opening Instagram to check if a reel my friend sent me, and then 1 hour later watching 20 clips from Breaking Bad and making zero progress on my essay due the next day. After these 2 adjustments, I would be reading a homework assignment and finishing it without the 3-hour break in focus when I picked up my phone. The difference was pretty significant. Next, I worked on changing my mindset about my phone. It required mental exercise and quite a bit of discipline, but every time I was tempted to pick up my phone, I instead thought, would I actually be helping myself if I were to pick up my phone? I was getting way more done, and everything started to seem more interesting. I remember a moment when I was working on an English final, with ideas just flowing through my head, and I thought to myself, this is not torture. And I spent 2 hours straight finishing that assignment with everything I wanted to do. I didn't completely change overnight. Things just felt a little more normal. I didn't have as many of those crazy periods of supercharged focus, but most of the time, I just did my homework when I wanted to do my homework. It wasn't an overnight transition, but gradually, I discovered a newfound sense of balance with everything just being more enjoyable. By redefining my relationship with my phone, I've learned to strike a healthier balance. It's not about cutting ourselves off or a secret method that could fix phone addiction, but we all should find that middle ground where technology enhances our lives without controlling them, especially in the post-COVID era. Being mindful of our actions is indispensable. Thank you.